Let's speak now to Gareth Wilson, who stood against George Osborne for the Liberal Democrats in Tatton at the last general election in 2015. Hello, Gareth.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. Thanks ever so much for joining me. What was your
problem.
first reaction when you heard the news about George Osborne's new job?
Well, I think you took the words out of my mouth in the little intro before. I was staggered at this. I think we all thought it was a bit of a joke. We just can't believe that he thinks he can be an effective MP whilst being the editor of a major newspaper, and we think he should resign if he chooses to take up the role.
So when he campaigned, you'll have seen his campaign literature in Tatton. I mean, did he make an effort in 2015? Was he there, knocking on doors?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the only time I saw him was basically there were two very large hustings events, sort of town hall events, during the entirety of the campaign. And for the rest of the campaign, he was completely invisible. So, I used to turn up at events all across the constituency with the Green candidate, the Labour candidate, and the UKIP candidate. And it was a running joke because he never attended. He attended two events in the entirety of the campaign. And his excuse then was that, obviously he was the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and in some ways, I can understand, he had an elections fight and he was the second in command for the country. Now, the issue is obviously he's no longer Chancellor of the Exchequer, but he still believes that he can be a part-time MP doing things which are completely nothing to do with running the government. And we think it's completely disgraceful. It's breathtaking disrespect to people of Tatton.
Presumably he had a decent majority back in 2015, so you were looking at a tough job anyway. But seriously, so he felt he didn't have to turn up. He was probably had a nice, comfortable majority. If you had known that this bloke was going to only be doing it part-time while simultaneously, not just any other job, but editing a newspaper down in London, miles away from a constituency, dealing with issues that have got very little to do with the constituents there in Tatton. I mean, you would have had a much better chance of eating away at that majority, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, and Tatton seems to have a history of rotten Tory MPs, because I don't know if you remember Neil Hamilton.
Very much so.
He was here for the Cash for Questions, and during that time, Martin Bell stood and he overturned a massive Tory majority on the strength of the fact that we had a rotten MP, and that's what we've got right now. We've got a part-time MP, and the people of Tatton deserve a full-time MP. And we would be more than happy to fight a by-election immediately, and I think it's something that we could do very well in.
How do you think he's been as a constituency MP since 2001? As you say, he's been Chancellor for a lot of that time, so he has been a bit distracted, but there is still a lot of hard work to do in a constituency, and just because you've got other stuff on, it doesn't mean you're not obliged to still be going and meeting your constituents and dealing with their day-to-day problems.
Yeah, I mean, the only presence he's had in the constituency is he very cunningly comes in and he will do a whistle-stop tour, opening a supermarket and visiting a couple of primary schools, and then he releases these photos, periodically to make him look like he's in the constituency. But when I'm doing my day-to-day campaigning, whether it's on hospital parking charges or on some of the issues we've got with large housing estates which are being plonked in the middle of the green belt, I mean, you never see him in person. You may, if you're lucky, you may get a letter which has clearly been written by one of his staff. But in person, he's absolutely invisible in the constituency. And also, if you look at his expenses claims, he virtually never claims for travel expenses on train tickets and what have you coming up to Tatton. So,
maybe he's just, in his defence, maybe he's paying his own way. You never know.
Well, do you think so? I seriously doubt that.
Yeah, probably unlikely.
Absolutely.
I mean, it sounds all very arrogant, but I have heard some constituents say that they don't mind and say, all power to his elbow. Do you think that is a minority of them?
No, I think it absolutely is a minority. I think there's been a few, Tory stooges and local councillors who have been put forward to put forward a particular opinion. But, the people of Tatton do have a reputation for rising up against rotten MPs. So I think you should be very careful, because history could well repeat itself here, and we could, stand a candidate who could defeat him if a by-election was called.
OK, well, we'll keep an eye on that then. Gareth Wilson, thanks ever so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks.
Good man. There is Gareth Wilson, who stood against George Osborne in 2015. And as I said, Tories got a big majority there, but He'll be gutted now and he will be, as you can hear in his voice there, he relishes the opportunity to fight again at a by-election, because this does not reflect well on George Osborne, and it is arrogant, to say the least, of him to say to his constituents, don't worry about all your problems, I'm going to be too busy hobnobbing down in the nice Kensington offices of the London Evening Standard while you lot are all worrying about hospital car park charges.